Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Shimon Shanker, the Associate Principal at MTA, Donny's home for 4 years. We're here to remember and learn from Nachman Daniel ben Ari Tzvi Zichrono Livracha. Before we begin, I'd like to thank Yeshivat Shalvim, and in particular Refresh, who helped coordinate so many of the details of today's Shloshim Siyum, as today's Siyum will be simulcasted here in MTA, as well as Yeshivat Shalvim in Eretz Yisrael, Donny's home for this past year. I'd like to also thank the many people who helped coordinate all aspects of the learning towards the Siyum and the Shloshim here and in Eretz Yisrael. Mr. Ed Abramowitz, Rabbi Avi Bernstein, Rabbi Tanchum Cohen, Rabbi Natan Farber, Zach Frisch, Mr. Evan Finkelstein, Rabbi Stephen Janikowski, Mrs. Dina Kobry, Rabbi Yosef Kalinsky, Rabbi Ari Leibowitz of YU, Rabbi Ari Leibowitz of Shalvim, Shua Pariser, Mr. Shoshana Schechter, and Rabbi Dr. Ari Berman, who's made all of the learning programs his priority. We're humbled by the presence of Donny's parents, grandparents, friends, and Talmidim across the U.S. and around the world who are joining us to honor Donny's beautiful neshama. The nature of this unique Shloshim is a testament to the far-reaching impact Donny has had on Klal Yisrael. In this past week's parsha, Ba'aloscha, we read, Daber el Aaron, ve'amarta elav, Ba'aloscha es haneros, amul pnei hamenorah, iru shevas haneros. Speak to Aaron, say to him, when you go to light the lamps, let the 7 lamps give light at the front of the lampstand. Rashi there quotes the Gemara, Shabbos and Daf Chaf Aleph, Shetzarech lahadlik ad shetehei shal heves ola me'aleha. That when you light the flame, make sure that it's oleh, that it goes up. As an expression of ascending, that it has to light all by itself. It has to stand independent and be a light by itself. The Hasidic master, as all the Rebbes point out, that the menorah, as we know, based on the Gemara, represents Torah, and the flames and the shamos of our Talmidim. And just like the flames need to be strong, that they ascend by themselves, so too Talmidim need to be strong enough to be independent and strong enough to stand on their own. Talmidim who feel comfortable in a Beis Medrash, opening a sefer, learning by themselves. Talmidim who can lead a minyan, volunteer to lane. Talmidim whose midos are an example for everyone else around them. In essence, Donny. Donny's blessed to have caring, nurturing parents and learned in incredible yeshivos and summer programs that created a truly independent, strong Ben Torah and Yerushalayim. I have vivid memories of watching Donny sit and learn in this Beis Medrash during the day when he was free from class, sit and learning, night seder here with his chavrusas. And when the whole world was in lockdown, when we all went on to Zoom and yeshiva, I don't think there was a learning program that Donny missed. All throughout lockdown, even though when Talmidim were turning off their Zooms, Donny was turning it on, ready to learn. We only had to take a look at his schedule in Shalvim to realize how independent he had become. He'd become a true Mevakesh. This is perhaps why the world responded so phenomenally with the immense Talmud Torah and Kabbalah of Midos in his schus. Amazingly, to this date, collectively, worldwide, we have completed Shas Bavli 1 time, Shas Mishnayos 5 times, and Tanakh almost 4 times. And thousands of Midos Tovos were performed this month alone, all because of Donny's inspiration. Kain Yirbu. Yehi Zechor Baruch. I would now like to call up Rav Yaakov Neuberger, Rosh Yeshiva in YU, Rav Congregation Beth Abraham, the Morris's family Rav.
K'vudei Mishpacha, Ari and Merlana and Akiva and Gabi, Kvod, the grandparents, Rabbi and Mrs. Morris joins us from down south, and Rabbi and Mrs. Kronenberg, who are here with us. Kronenberg remembers this Beis HaMedrash from many years ago. It didn't look quite the same way, but spent good years in this Beis HaMedrash. Kvod Rosh Yeshiva v'Haramim and Shalavim and many of the yeshivas and Kvod Haramim of our yeshiva here. When Rabbi Shenker asked me to say a few words this morning, I was trying to figure out how to understand this event. What brings together all of you, most of you who did not know Donny, you may have recognized him and saw him in the halls, and some of you may have interacted, but most of you didn't strongly interact with him. And certainly the many students, the more senior students at Shalavim, and the students at all the various yeshivas that participated in the learning of the course of the Shloshim and are participating this morning. Just trying to wrap my mind around what is the nature of this, what brings people together. And at first I thought that Tzelem Elokim cannot bear to see the black hole of pain, the black hole of tsar, and simply stand by. V'le're'isi tzadik nezav umevakesh v'zar'o mevakesh lochem. V'le're'isi, some Meforshim say, Kadosh Baruch Hu was saying, I never stood by. Ki eichacha uchal v'ra'isi v'ro'a sheyimtza es ami. Tzelem Elokim, like the Rebbeinu Shalom himself, Lo Re'isi. And when we see this tsar, there's an ending and lifelong tsar. So the Jew can't simply stand by. The Jew says to himself and to herself, maybe I can take a tipa shebiyom away of tsar. Maybe if family sees the concern and the care, the interest, the mitzvahs, the learning, the efforts, lalina shmosai. But then this morning, it occurred to me that there's a better way to describe this phenomena that brings so many young people together in Torah and mitzvahs. Pasuk comes from Matan Torah. Vayishlach es na'arei b'nei Yisrael. Vayishlach na'arei b'nei Yisrael. Vayalu olos v'yizbechu zvachim. Shlomim la'Hashem porim. Came to Matan Torah. We had to bring korbanos. Pshat in the pasuk is Moshe Rabbeinu sent the young people. Na'arei b'nei Yisrael. They were the ones who brought the korbanos. Then I thought about this morning, so all of a sudden there was Mabel Arayan. Because this pasuk is discussed in Yuma, Daf Nun Beis. And I thought the Daf Yomi is holding, I think, by Nun Aleph today. That means that in Eretz Yisrael, it's already after Shki, after Tzeis, they were holding by Daf Nun Beis. It means that the next Daf that Klal Yisrael will learn after the Shloshim of Donny is this pasuk, the Daf that points out that this is one of the psukim she'ein lahem achreya. This is one of the psukim that we don't understand how to read this pasuk. that when Klal Yisrael looks and sees its young people giving korbanos, making the sacrifice, that's a pasuk she'ein lachreya. It's a pasuk that we never fully understand. Gemara says it's a pasuk that left them Aaron b'safek. What was the safek? Safek was that we don't know which olos they brought. The pasuk ends by saying, "Vayizbechu zvachim shlomim laHashem porim," that a por they brought as shlomim. But vayalu olos, we don't know. Was it porim? Was it kvasim? Gemara says we'll never know. Rabbi Chaya says a por is a por shel Yom Kippurim, a por is a por hel medover, a por shel avodah zarah, a por is a response to the midas hadin. Kvasim is the lambs of Pesach, of geula, of redemption, of ambition, of openness, of potential, of excitement, of growth. When we see that Nare B'nai Yisrael, the young people, were asked to bring korbanos, and it may have been porim, it may have been a response to midas hadin. It may have been an all-consuming midas hadin and giving no place for kvasim, for the kvasim of hope and of redemption. Gemara says, tomorrow's daf, that's a pasuk she'ein lachreya. That's a pasuk that we will not understand. There is another Gemara in this pasuk, one that most of you have come across. That's when the Jews were called in, when the Sanhedrin was called in to translate the Torah for Talmai. Each one in their own cubicle. Each one on their own. And they said, Talmai is going to see a pasuk. Non-Jewish world in the libraries of Talmai will see a pasuk that says that young people were asked to bring korbanos, to do the avodah. Not the older zakadim, not the well-learned, not the well-practiced, not the people who have worked on their midos for years and years, but young people. Talmai will never understand this. He won't get it. Because when you ask a young person to do something, it means it's not so important. If you're not a mamin, and you read the pasuk and you ask a child to do something, that means you're not invested in it. It means you don't really care what turns out, what happens. But a mamin is different. Klal Yisrael is different. Because when Klal Yisrael asks a young person to learn a Mishnah, to take on a Kabbalah, to work on a Midah, when Klal Yisrael asks a young person to invest themselves, then Klal Yisrael sees that we appreciate optimism and potential and growth and purity, that we appreciate promise, that we appreciate excitement and ambition. Klal Yisrael, the leaders of Klal Yisrael knew that the outside world would not get this. And therefore, they translated the word to be zatute, those who were selected and elected. When young people are selected and elected, sometimes we don't understand it and get it. But a mamin can put it all together. Doesn't understand it. But a mamin can say that sometimes Nare B'nai Yisrael are also Zatute B'nai Yisrael. So what brings all of you And what brings Jews over the entire world are Talmidim and Shalavim and a variety of high schools throughout the country. What brings us together is it's Na'arei B'nai Yisrael. It means that when we look at Donny's years in this life, in this world, we see there was the passion of youth. There was the excitement to embrace, to invest oneself. We see there was the ambition to learn Kol HaTorah Kula. They see there was an ambition not to waste time. They see there was an ambition to reach out to other people and to call them, to see somebody who needs a phone call, needs someone who you had met many, many years ago, but needs some chizuk. And with all of the youthfulness, he had that depth to know that he's young and he's inexperienced, but he can make a difference for people. He's young and he can dream and have ambitions. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu chose the Na'arei B'nai Yisrael to bring those korbanos. And that's why the leaders of Klal Yisrael knew that Talmud will not understand this. Because where they see the inability to accomplish, we see the passion and the excitement and the ambition. He'll leave you with a story. There was once a young man that came to Rabbi Yoshev. And he was a young man that was not very successful in his learning. And he had gone from program to program, yeshiva to yeshiva. And when he finally found his place, he tried to learn Gemara. He tried hard, and a little bit of success, dropped off. He tried to do Bekiyas, a little success, and dropped off. He would not give up, but he would not see success. And he finally came to Rabbi Yoshev, and he poured his heart out that as much as he tries and tries, he doesn't see success. So Yoshev said, but you're trying. And the Kadosh Baruch Hu loves when people try and invest themselves. So then he turns to Yoshev and says, but what's going to be li'achar me'ah v'esrim shana? Will it say in my matzeva that I accomplish Shas? Will it say in my matzeva that I became a Talmid Chacham? What's it going to say in my matzeva? It'll say I'm a shoyef. I had ambition. That's all it can say. Rabbi Yoshev looked at him and he said, if I was going to a Beis HaKvaros, a Beis HaChayim, and I was looking for a place to daven, and I saw a matzeva that said, Ashoyef, a person with ambition, a person with dreams, a person who wanted to accomplish Shas, a person who wanted to make a difference, Ashoyef, a person who wanted to give absolute nachas to parents and grandparents and Rebbeya. If I saw Shoyev, that would be the place where I would daven.
Donny had an affinity for the Svarim, Shiurim of Asher Weiss Shlita, one of the Gedolim of our time, someone who the world has turned to guide us in these challenging times. Rav Weiss has recorded a message for us for today.
So Nachman Daniel is the best place. He's together with all the tzaddikim in Gan Eden. Donny loved to learn Torah. I heard from his friends and Rabbeim in Shalabim. He was a beloved Talmud. So Rashi says in Avodah Zorah Daf Gimel, HaKadosh Baruch Hu melamed Torah b'shamayim to children. Rashi says, children that died, HaKadosh Baruch Hu teaches them Torah. So Daniel is learning Torah, Mepi HaGevura, up there in the heavens. But for us to know that we'll have to wait till Tchias HaMesim to see his smile again, to see his radiant face, is unbearable pain. But we take chizuk in the fact that he is up there in Gan Eden with all the tzaddik. At the time, I spoke about the concept of korbanos tzibur. Those 45 neshamas in this terrible tragedy were a korban tzibur. And the Medrash in Shir HaShirim says, Doidi yored legalim, lilket lo shoishanim. Al tikra shoishanim elo shishoinim. Yes, HaKadosh Baruch Hu came down to his garden and he picked the most beautiful flowers. So a person has a beautiful garden, and every Erev Shabbos he goes out to the garden and looks around, and he plucks the most beautiful flowers to put them in the vase to have on his Shabbos table. He will only pick the best. Out of 100 flowers, he will take those that are most beautiful. When this tragedy unfolded, and when those that were killed and wounded were finally taken to the hospitals, what was left was an awful sight. But what struck me was a heap of streimels, Hasidische streimels, Borsalino hats of Litvische B'nai Torah, kippot srugot, of the wonderful young Talmidim in the Dati Leumi world. Because when you pick flowers, you want an assortment of colors, of fragrances. You want the beauty of combination, of contrast. How symbolic. Those 45 represented every color and shape of the beautiful pesifas of the Jewish people. Engelrad, two brothers, another Sephardi family, two brothers, kippot srugot, streimels, black hats. Kodesh Baruch Hu picked some of them all. That's a korban tzibur. Lilkot loy shoshanim. So 30 days have passed. Shloshim lebechi. 3 days are dedicated to crying. 7 days lemizbot. Shloshim le'evam. Why do we come together after 30 days? The objective is to learn, to hear about the deceased, about the beauty of their personalities, and to take something home from the legacy that they left us. So my heart is with Donny's family, parents, all his friends, and the wonderful school and yeshivas where this young Ben Torah grew and flourished. Kodesh Baruch Hu should be machazik you all. Benachomas tzion tunuchamu, knowing that Daniel Nachman, or Nachman Daniel, Oro Besara Shomayim, in such a holy place and such a holy day, is somewhat of a nachama. You should be a Melech Yosher. You should all know Simchas and Nachas, and we should all together be misnachem benachamas Tzion v'Yerushalayim. שנזכה בקרוב לתחיית המתים ולבניין בית המקדש במהרה בימינו אמן.
Now I'd like to call up Donny's Rebbe for the last year in Shalavim, Noam Koenigsberg. Donny's Rebbe for the last year in Shalavim, Noam Koenigsberg.
Yeshus Kvod HaRabbanim Shlita, Donny's dear parents and family, Kvod HaTalmidim HaYekarim, Omar Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Va'isi b'nei Aliyah u'mu'atim hem. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai remarked, I have seen those that have excelled, but they are few and far between. What a strange observation on the part of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. For in every group, in every class, on every sports team, and in every shiur, you're going to have that select group that are going to be a head above the rest. They're going to be the mitzuyanim, and by definition they will be mu'atim. That's what makes them unique. That's what makes them special. What was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai mechadesh when he said, Ra'isi b'nei Aliyah u'mu'atim hem? Rav Kook has a beautiful understanding of this Ma'amar of Rashbi. Many of you sitting here will be making a siyum on Bava Metzia in the coming weeks. And you'll be reading the last few lines of a perek called Habayis v'Ha'aliyah. Those that live in the lower level of a structure are called B'nei Habayis. Those that live on the upper level are called B'nei Ha'aliyah. And you're well aware of the sugyas and shas that speak about disputes between B'nei Habayis and B'nei Ha'aliyah. Who do the Avanim belong to in a case of Nefilas Habayis? Etc., etc. But the difference between B'nei Habayis and B'nei Ha'aliyah are not just where their dwelling place is. The B'nei Habayis and B'nei Ha'aliyah have very different perspectives of the world. The B'nei Habayis see the world from ground level. That's how they view it. They're members of that world. They belong to that world. There's a feeling of belonging to the physical world. The B'nei Ha'aliyah have a very different perspective. The world looks different to them. Because they're looking down on the world from a different plane. And Rav Kook explains that the B'nei Habayis in this Ma'amar of Rashbi symbolize those that feel a belonging to the world of Gashmias. Of course, they make the necessary visits when called upon to go up the stairs, and they visit in the Aliyah. They will dabble in Ruchnias. They'll even do a gap year. But where do they belong? What is their dwelling place? Their dwelling place, what's truly important to them, is the world of the bias, their mundane and physical lives. But then there are the Bnei Ha'aliyah, who were born to strive for something else. They make the necessary visits to the bias. And the physical world is important to them. And they will address their physical needs. And they'll be healthy and earn a parnasa and learn a profession. But what is their dwelling place? They are Bnei Aliyah. That is their home. They're striving constantly for Kedusha and mitzvos and midos tovos. They visit in the house when necessary, but they return to the Aliyah. Amar Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, Ra'isi b'nei Aliyah u'mu'atim hem. What an extremely difficult month this has been for all of us. Donny, without having you sitting in your makom in the Beis Medrash, I still cannot get used to that. Perhaps the Talmidim in Shir have noticed that it's hard for me to glance at the front row just to my left in that empty seat. How difficult it is not to see you on the couch at Bayit Cham, enjoying those chocolate vaflim. The void that you have left in our lives is unbearable. First of all, Donny, you were such a great chaver to all of us. A true story from one of the Talmidei HaYeshiva. One of the Talmidim in Yeshiva had a very difficult time adjusting at the beginning of the year. There was homesickness. It was difficult to function, and there was particular difficulty in falling asleep at night. Nebuch, he was constantly thinking of home. And this Talmud realized that whenever he had a conversation with Donny Zichrono Livracha, he was somehow calmed, he was somehow at ease. And therefore this Talmud, I heard it from him himself, he would go into bed at night, call Donny in for a conversation so that he would feel at ease and calmed. He would have that influx of simcha that he received, that Donny exuded, and he was able to continue in yeshiva. Tonight, those friends are doing a siyum and Maseches Yoma, the Masechta that you began, Donny, in the Seder of Daf Yomi, but were never zochet to finish, at least as we heard from Agaon Rav Asher Weiss, at least ba'olam hazeh. What a great testimony to the friendships that you formed. Beyond that, Donny, you were a Talmud Chaver. I say that because not only did I enjoy so much learning with you, but I love just speaking to you as a Chaver, hearing those Chavayot from Shabbos or any other experience in Israel that you used to share. But more than that, Donny, you were a true Ben Aliyah in the fullest sense of the word. And together with another 44 Bnei Aliyah, you were taken from us at the Tzion of the author himself to continue an endless existence of Aliyah. It is because you were a Ben Aliyah, Donny, that you always put your friends before yourself. In the middle of the year, I heard from your 5 suite mates, there was a period of time when the room wasn't exactly cleaned weekly. This can't happen in yeshiva. And in fact, there was a 3-week period where the room simply wasn't clean. This happens to be a suite of Masmidim. And there was a free Shabbos. And all the guys left for Shabbos except for Donny, who wanted a nice Shabbos in yeshiva on that out Shabbos. And the guys already decided, okay, we're going to have to go another week before we clean. But they walked into the Sweet Motzai Shabbos. Floors are swept and cleaned. The bathrooms are scrubbed. Countertops polished. The pots and pans were even washed. Donny did not want any credit. Didn't brag. He thought of his chaverim before himself. And it's not a pele, it's not surprising that Donny was the one to think about lighting Shabbos candles on the floor in the dorm to create a feeling of Shabbos even outside the Beis Medrash. The first 2 weeks of yeshiva, the guys were in quarantine. You guys remember this, of course. And Donny was seen one day in those first 2 weeks setting up the tables in the hallway. The guys had 6 feet by 6 feet. He was lining up the tables however he could. And when asked, what are you doing? He said, I'm making a Beis Medrash in the hallway. Why do we have to wait till Yud Daled Elul to go into the Beis Medrash? We're bringing the Beis Medrash here. Donny, I see, was a fulfillment of the tefillah that your mother has recited countless times. Me'irim es ha'olam b'torah uv'masim tovim, because your smile brought so much light to us all. This year is going to be a tremendous challenge. First and foremost for your dear parents and family, but of course for all of us as well and your extended family. May you be a Melitz Yosher for your family, for all of Klal Yisrael, for Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, for Mashiach Tzidkenu B'mehera B'yameinu. Amen.
Hundreds of people around the world were touched by Donny's neshama, by his aspirations for greatness, and responded accordingly. People all around the world signed up to learn Gemara, Shas Mishnayos, Tanakh. To one point, when we first launched the website to sign up for the learning, Google didn't know what to do with it. It was so overwhelming to them. They asked us to stop having people sign up for it. The response was absolutely incredible. And again, as the stories came out about Donny and his aspirations for greatness, it only inspired more and more people to want to be part of this beautiful siyum. But it's important that we hear as well from Donny's friends, the people who knew him outside of his family the best, the people who spent years and years with him and really understood him as a person, understood who he truly was. Now I'd like to call up 4 of Donny's close friends to make the siyumim on Shas Gemara, Shas Mishnayos, and Tanakh. I'd say the Hadron, Ike Gottlob, Aryeh Teller, Shua Pariser, and Penny Balsam.
Bereshus, the Chod, Harabanim, the Morris family. Special shout out to Akiva Morris. Some of you may know, Donny and I were both devoted Mets fans, despite all their setbacks and overwhelming moments on the field. Although our loyalty to the Mets was unmatched, our friendship and appreciation of each other trumps our allegiance to the Mets by landslide. I had the privilege of becoming friends with Donny and being in school with him at around 3 years old and until he graduated high school. A week before I left for yeshiva, I came with the realization that this would be the first time that Donny and I would be separated. At first, it did feel a bit weird, but I knew the friendship that Donny and I had wouldn't be phased. And despite all the corona craziness that happened this year, we wouldn't be limited in hanging out. I appreciated and did not take for granted any of the time we had together. I couldn't have asked for a better friend. One of the numerous qualities of Donny that I admire and attempt to involve in my everyday life was how he was true to himself. Prior to the start of our 10th grade softball season, Donny told me he was planning on getting an arm sleeve for the softball team. Right away, I assumed it would be similar to the neon sleeve that one of Donny's icons, Yoenis Cespedes, used to rock on the field. During pregame warm-ups to our first game, Donny came over wearing a pink camouflage suit. Of course, I had to know the reason as to why he chose the color, and Donny's answer was remarkable. All he said was, "Why not? It's good to change it up and be different." I like to call this the Donny Morris mentality. It's nice to admire others, but it's important to be true to yourself. Over the past week, I've had the privilege to learn and complete Sefer Daniel L'Zecher Nishmas Donny. Sefer Daniel concludes with, "V'ata lech laketz v'sanuach v'samod v'gorocha laketz hayamin." But you go on to the end, and you shall rest, and arise to your destiny and at the end of days. Our passion for the Mets was one of our many traits that united us. But our admiration and appreciation for our friendship that we have is eternal and won't ever be forgotten. Yehi Zechor Baruch.
First time I met Donny was 3 years old. We had a family meal together at the Rosenbaums. I never met Donny before. Our families never knew each other, but we hit it off right from the spot. And our families did too. And from then on, I got an invitation to go to Donny's birthday party, his 4-year-old birthday party. It's probably my first birthday party of anyone that I knew in New Jersey. And I just remember it being a complete disaster. It was at the Dale and Thomas Popcorn Factory, no longer in existence. But I threw a tantrum. It was terrible. You'd think that that would end a relationship. Quite the contrary. In fact, the Morrises accepted me with open arms, and from then on, our relationship only grew stronger and stronger. And I thank the Morrises for giving me another chance. People think that waking up early, which Donny did here in Shalvim for Nate's, was really the only time he did so. But in fact, it goes way beyond that. Back in his Camp Dora Golding days, one time I woke up early in the morning, and I saw that Donny was visibly missing from his bed. And I asked, "Where's Donny?" And of course, he was at the early morning Cocoa Club. If you could ask anyone in Dora Golding, they tell you that for 30 minutes before davening, they would learn with one of the Rebbes in Dora Golding and get some cocoa. And of course, you could see from here Donny's ambition to get up early in the morning to learn. And I think that's something inspirational for all of us. Donny was very involved in the community. As we all know, he was a group leader for so many years. And one particular incident, I think, encapsulates everything that Donny stood for. One time, one of his kids asked him, "Donny, why do you always smile? Don't you ever have a bad day?" Donny responded, "Every day that Hashem allows me to wake up and spend time with you guys is a great day." That really encapsulates everything that Donny stood for, always trying to incorporate Hashem into the life of his campers and himself. Some other moments of him being involved in the community, which other people don't really know about. Donny always went to every year's escrow checking. You know, usually it was Rav Newberger and a bunch of old people that were doing the escrow checking. But Donny always loved it. Every year, he'd always talk about it. He looked forward to it all the time, going to do the escrow check. And I really appreciate all the work that he did there for us. I had the privilege of being at Donny's first siyum in Camp Dora Golding. It was during the 9 days with Aaron Teigman and Penny Balsam on Maseches Chagiga. I also happened to be at Donny's last siyum, Maseches Pesachim, and you could just see that he always wanted to help out the community, whether it was helping out the campers who wanted to get a meat meal in, or whether it was here trying to help all the Bechorim being able to eat for Tanis Bechorim. Our last moment together was 2 days before the tragedy. We were sitting in a Rav Natan Leibowitz shir. The classic me and Donny relationship. I made a joke, Donny laughing on the floor. The whole row started laughing. And I'm just happy that my last moment with Donny was besimcha, as it always was. Donny, you're an inspiration to all of us. Your legacy is forever established. You're an incredible friend. Thank you for 15 plus years. We'll never forget you. I could say that, and definitely the rest of your friends can too. And now I'll be making the siyum on Mishnayos. Amar Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi. Asir HaKadosh Baruch Hu lahanchil chod tzadik v'tzadik shalosh meos v'asar olamu shnamar Lanchil Ovai, Yish, Votrosam Amale, Amar Rabbi Shimon ben Chalafta, Lo Matzah Kadosh Baruch Hu, Kli Machzik Rachel Yisrael, Ela Shalom Shnamar, Hashem Lo Zamitin, Hashem Yivragasam Avashalom. Teinish Mazo Shura B'Tzorah Chaim.
Rishus the Rebbeim of MTA, of Yeshivat Shalavim, Rabbi Neuberger, all the Chashuv Chevra, who's both here in Eretz Yisrael and in America. The bracket was set, the rule book was made, and the players' schedule was ready to go for the first and last annual Monsey Shabbaton Freshman Year Mini Hockey League, which would happen in the real world famous arena, aka my basement. I had 4 good chaverim over, Donny being one of them, and me not knowing anything about sports, you could ask any of the MTA chavra, I put some metal frames together from beds, some desks together to make some sort of arena thing. But when they got there, they weren't exactly like happy with it. But they didn't say it outright. Baruch Hashem, they're very good friends. I still do. They didn't say it outright. That year, we were in Yeshiva Fellowship. We were focusing on Shabbos. And one of the things that we learned about is how we should prepare for Shabbos. So on Friday morning, I called everyone up to help me make egg rolls for Shabbos. I still remember exactly. I splattered oil on my beige pants, whatever. I never wore those pants again. I never wore beige again. And so, but Donny said, I'll be there soon. There were in the 5 minutes that we were upstairs waiting for him, he took the Evergreen boxes, which is a grocery store in Monsey, took some Evergreen boxes, he took a roll of tape that I had, and he put some mats on the floor, and he made like an actual functioning arena. Without like saying anything, without making me feel bad. Another story is that when we were in 10th grade, Ike was wrong, there was something called Color War. For those of us who don't know, it's for some reason called the event of Achdus. And they, let's just say there was an activity called Hungry Hungry Humans, gone bad, where there was a scooter, and basically you would put a human on the scooter with a bucket, and there was like the ball pit, the ball's in the middle of the gym, and you would tie a string to the leg, and you would push the guy into the middle to get the balls, bring it back to your side, and then keep on doing this over and over again. So there was one time on one of the round trips that Donny's whatever the fibula, I don't even remember the names, hit against the wall, and like he was on a scooter for the next 6 weeks. The next year, when it came, however long it was, I don't remember exactly. The next year, when it came to planning Color War, I was in the office, the student activities office, and I said, we're not doing Hungry Humans. We're doing tug of war instead. Donny came over to me when he saw the schedule. Yes, everyone knew the schedule somehow before Color War started. We were not good at keeping it a secret. But I'm sorry, MTA, for admitting that. Donny came over to me when he saw the schedule. He was like, why did you change it? I was like, because there was an injury last year. He was like, everyone else had fun. So that's who Donny was. He cared about everybody, and he also cared about himself, but it was more hidden. And I believe the last Mishnah in Uktzin, as Aryeh Teller said, the last pasuk, as Donny said, and the last Gemara, as I'm about to say, all represent Donny. The last Mishnah talks about how Hashem gives 300 lamos to his Ohavim. I think Donny took advantage of every single one of them. And the last, Aki spoke about the last pasuk, so I don't need to do that. The last Gemara is the Gemara that in America we say every Shabbos. In Eretz Yisrael, some of us say it every day, some of us say it on Shabbos. The Gemara says, Tana Devel Yahu, Kol Hashana Halachos B'chol Yom Muftach Lo Shuban Olam Haba. Whoever learns Halachos every single day is promised that he will be a Ben Olam Haba. Shenamar Halichos Olam Lo. The pasuk in Habakkuk says, his ways will be forever. Donny was someone who was like very big on learning halakha, and he was also someone who affected us in many ways. So the Gemara concludes, Shas Bavli concludes, Al Tikrei Halichos, don't read the pasuk as Halichos Olam Lo, Ela Halachos. Rather read it as Halachos Olam Lo. That halachos are what promises the one to Olam Haba. Hadron Allah, Tinokes, V'salik Allah, Mesechus Nida, V'salik Allah, Shas Talmud Bavli.
I'd quickly like to start with a story I've said many times. A lot of people have heard it, but I've left out a very crucial point of that story. So Donny and I were golfing on a Sunday, and we had a golf cart, and you know how that goes. And there's one point after like drifting on the dirt with the golf cart going to the next hole, there was someone in front of us, and like on the right of them, next to the road, there's a tree stump. And me being the driver, and Donny's encouragement, I said, we can definitely make it over that tree stump. I was so wrong. Full speed at the tree stump. All of a sudden you feel the golf cart stop instantly. I thought Donny flew right out of the thing. I did like the mom arm thing, put it to the right. And all of a sudden these two buff guys, and we also hit the other people's golf cart, so all of a sudden these two buff guys come out of their golf cart. I hit one of their golf clubs. Golf clubs are not cheap. These ones are not cheap. I thought we were done. Donny goes up to them like make sure it's all good, cracks a joke. These guys start dying because we were so scared. But like I don't know what Donny told them, but they were dying, and we ended up finishing the golf round with them for the last 3 holes. These guys were huge. But no, Donny's smile changes everything. I thought I was gonna get beat up, but Donny's smile saved me. So another story. Donny, my first siyum, I don't know if it was Donny's first siyum, it was in Dora Golding during the 9 days. We made a siyum on Chagiga. It was me, Aaron Teigman, and Donny. And I personally, my motivation for the siyum was stand in front of the whole camp, make a siyum, pretty cool. Donny and Aaron actually learned the Masechta. I did not. Sorry, Dad. But I learned. I was just there. But so then Donny did the Hadron. I did the last Gemara, and I remember on the way up here to make sure I do the Hadron correctly today. I rewatched Donny doing the Hadron over and over again, making sure I get this one correct. So the meaning of Hadron Allah is we will return to you. Meaning that it's not a farewell, it's that we will come back to you, we'll learn another Masechta, but I learned it in a way last night in Night Seder that what I learned from Donny, that it affected everyone, his smile, but that never left me. It always came back to me, and it sticks. So when Donny was physically here with us, there was so much that we could learn from him, but at the same time we cannot let that go. Every time you finish a Masechta, it should be for Donny. and then you learn a trait from that, and you continue it. Me personally, during Shavuos, when one of my friends was completing she said Sidrei Mishnah for Donny, and he gave some of our friends some Mishnahs to learn. I learned that for Donny, and over time, I took some of those traits that I learned, and I applied it, and I continued. I said Hadran Alach, and I go back, and you learn it again, and you take a trait, and you say from Donny, you say Hadran Alach, and you go back. If you're feeling down, you learn a smile. You take that smile from Donny, Hadran Alach. Next situation that happens, you get that smile. So I'm going to continue with the Hadran Alach. Hadran Alach Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli, V'hadrak Alach. Daitan Alach Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli, V'daitak Alach. Los Nashe Minach Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli, Velos Nashe Minan. Lo Ba'ama Hadin, V'lo Ba'ama Daisi. Hadran Alach Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli. V'hadrak Alach, Daitan Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli. V'daitak Alach, Los Nashe Minach Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli, Velos Nashe Minan. Lo Ba'ama Hadin, V'lo Ba'ama Daisi. Hadran Alach Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli. V'hadrak Alach. Daitan Alach, she says Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli. V'daitak Alach. Los Nashe Minach Tanakh, she says Sidrei Mishnah, V'tam Babli, Velos Nashe Minan. Lo Ba'ama Hadin, V'lo Ba'ama Daisi. Yurtzom Afnecha, Leinu V'levasenu, Shetahei Dorsecho, Umanosenu, Ba'olam Hazeh, Uzehei Manu L'olam Haba. Chani bar Papa, Rani bar Papa, Nachman bar Papa, Ache bar Papa, Abba bar Papa, Rafin bar Papa, Rachish bar Papa, Sarcha bar Papa, Ada bar Papa, Dor bar Papa. Harav Na, Adonai Lenu, as the Veit Dorsecho, Ufinu, Ufivos Am Chabe Yisrael, V'niyah Nachnu, Kulanu V'tzasenu, V'tzam Chabe Yisrael, Klenu Dei Shemecha, V'lam Dei Dorsecha, Merevet, Techakmeni, Mitzvosecha, Kilom Hili, Hili Tamim Bechukeklam Van, Lo Ebosh, Liolam. Lo Eshgach, Bechudeka Ki Bam, Chisani Baruch Ato Adonai Lamdenu Kekal Mena Mena Selva Ed. Mod Manaklu Funaka, Lenu Levasenu, Sheshmata, Chalkenu Miyoshre Beis Hamidrash, Lo Santa Chalkenu Miyoshre Kronos. Sha'anu Mashkimim, Vehim Mashkimim, Anu Mashkim L'divrei Torah, Vehim Mashkim L'dvarim B'Telem. Anu Amelim, Vehim Amelim. Anu Amelim U'Makablim, Sachar, Vehim Amelim, Ve'enam Makablim Sachar. Anu Ratzim, Vehim Ratzim. Anu Ratzim, L'chaylam Abba, Vehim Ratzim, L'var Shachar, Shenamar Va'ata Elohim. Teridem levar shachas anshe damim umirma lo yaktu yameim va'ani eftach bach. Yirtum afnacha and alei kishem shezartani l'saim shisha Sidrei Mishnah v'tam babli kin ta'azreni l'haskil nesaktos usvarim acherim u'lisyamin. Vilmod ulame lishmor v'lasos kaim es kol dever tamud teresaka bi'avos v'chus kol sinaim hatanaim v'amoram u'talmidei chachamim yamod lanu u'zerim shelo tamash haTorah Mipinu umipe zarine adolam. Iskayim bino besalecha tancha oscha. Yishavucha tishmor alecha v'aki tzosa hi tisichecha. Ki bi yirbu yamecha yosifu lecha shnos chayim orak yomim b'mina b'smola osir v'chavod. And that is my eternal Ivarach Esmo Bashalom. Yiskadav, Shmir Abba. Ymadrak hu asid liskada l'chayim l'saya l'aska yitam l'chaya alma l'mivna karta di Yerushalayim u'l'shafluka heichale begava u'l'mekar pulchana nuchra min ara u'sava pulchana di shmai l'asra v'yamlich kucha b'richu b'mal chuse v'ikare v'chaychon v'yom echon l'chayit chol beis Yisrael l'glaz makriv imro amen. Yehei Shmei Rabba Mevayrach L'Olam Omei Maya Yisparach Yisharavach Yispar V'Yisharam Yisnasev Yizdav Yisdav Yisvol Shmei D'Guchav Rechu L'Elam Yikor B'Gasav Yishirasah Tush B'Gasav Nagamasah Damiram B'Amav V'Imro Amen Yesh Shalom Rabba Min Shemai V'Chenu Kol Yisrael V'Imro Amen Yiseh Shalom B'Mamav Hu Yaseh Shalom Leina V'Al Kol Yisrael V'Imro Amen.
And for our concluding remarks, I'd like to call up Rabbi Joshua Kahn, head of school at MTA.
Bershus, President Rabbi Dr. Berman, Mori Varabi, Ray Neuberger, our Rosh Hashiva, Ray Taubis, Rav Yammer, Rosh Hashiva of Shalavim, other Rabbanim, all of our partnering schools, the Morris family, and all of our esteemed guests. I'd like to close the program with a medrash that captures the emotions that many of us have experienced over the last month, and really what makes the Siyum today so special. The medrash in Parshas Nitzavim says the following: Atem nitzavim hayom. You are standing before me, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, today. Ma hayom me'ir pamim u'ma'afil pamim. Just as the day at times shines, it radiates, it's me'ir, and at other times it's dark, it's ma'afil. Afatem, so too you. Keshafela lachem, when it's dark for you. Atid lahayir lachem or olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu promises us that He'll bring a great light for us. He'll brighten our day. Shne'amar, as the Torah says, Vayalacha Hashem l'or olam. Emasai, when is this true? What causes the light to come about? Bizman shetu kulchem aguda achas. When we were able to band together, to unify together as one aguda, as one group, as one unit. Shne'amar, Chayim kulchem hayom. And the Medrash goes on to describe just a practical, relatable sequence. Benoig sheba'olam, the practice in the world. Im no tel adam aguda shel kanm. If a person is to take a bundle of reeds, shema yachol l'shavram b'vas achas. It's possible, but it will be exceedingly difficult to try to break apart that bundle of reeds. V'ilu not lan achas achas. But if I were to separate out each reed, afilu tinok b'shabran. Individually, they're very breakable. Even a young child would be able to tear them apart. And we find that the geula will come about because we're able to be aguda achas. And the Medrash concludes, Keshehin agudim, and when we are united, mekablan pnei shchina, we merit to be able to see the shchina. There's a great power to achdos, a strength to being united. As the Medrash describes, achdos brings about light, even in moments of darkness. And this thought has gone through my mind a lot, because the pain we felt through the loss of Donny, through the loss of Nachman Daniel ben Aryeh Tzvi, is a byproduct of this achdos. The thousands of people who were crying is an outgrowth of the connection each person feels to Donny, to the Morris family, to all of the yeshivas and programs connected to Donny, and to Klal Yisrael. And these challenging circumstances, unfortunately, have brought us together, first to daven, then to cry, and then to try to offer words of nechama. And yet it's the very same achdos which has caused us to feel the pain, is also what the Medrash describes as what gives us the chizuk and the strength to withstand these challenges. And that's been the secret over the last month. The response to tragedy, the reaction to the loss that we have suffered, has been one of great achdus. There's been such an outpouring of support, of love, of people who want to be there. And this outpouring of support, which was reflected, as Ray Shanker mentioned, in the website crashing, because of how many people wanted to participate in a program to perpetuate the legacy of your beloved Donny. Today we're celebrating 500 people or more who have signed up, and I'm sure there are infinitely more who didn't take the time to sign up, but have committed to following the lessons of Donny and to learn in his memory. As was mentioned, we accomplished making a siyum on Tanakh almost 4 times, Shas Mishnayos 5 times, and the entire Talmud Bavli. In this vein, achdos has been our greatest weapon through which we can achieve so much more. Kishehin agudin, when we are united, when we are together, mekablan pnei shchina, we see the shchina. And it's most appropriate that this achdos was put into action through our Torah learning. As we're taught, the word Yisrael stands for Yesh Shivshim Riboy Osios LaTorah. There are 600,000 letters in the Torah, each letter meant to correspond to a different member of Klal Yisrael, because it is the Torah that unites us, and is the Torah through which we banded together to try to perpetuate Donny's memory. But Torah is also described as a shira, as a song, because it's the harmonious music, it's the symphony that we all create by joining together to learn Torah, each person bringing their own passion, their own talents, their own personality to sing the song of Hashem. And that's the vehicle with which we are all joining together to sing about the life and the legacy of our Donny, Nachman Daniel ben Aryeh Tzvi. Aryeh, Merlana, and family, every orchestra has a conductor. And as we close this program this morning, we express our respect and admiration. For although we've always tried to mechazik you, you have given us great chizuk and support as we remember and memorialize Donny. Thank you for sharing Donny with us, for allowing us to cry with you, and allowing us to celebrate and perpetuate Donny's legacy here at MTA and along with all of the yeshivas and the programs and people he has impacted. The Medrash closes with a promise. Through our sense of unity, through our sense of camaraderie, through our joining together, we will merit to see Hashem's presence. We'll merit to bring that light back to our lives, to have HaKadosh Baruch Hu illuminate the world through that smile of Donny. May this profound feeling of Achdus and the commitments that we've all made to perpetuate the life and the legacy of Donny merit the promise of the Medrash, which we hope to achieve through the coming of Mashiach soon, so we can be Mekabel Pnei HaShechina b'mheira b'yameinu. Amen. That concludes the international part of the program. We know what's been very powerful over the last month has been the ability to channel our emotions into singing. And so we appreciate, with the leadership of David Olzef, the ability to have a kumsitz here. It is optional for all MTA boys, so those who'd like to go excuse themselves to lunch, you're welcome to feel free. We will continue with second period at 2:07. So we'll have an opportunity to sing for about half an hour. Those who stay, you'll have an opportunity to have lunch for about half an hour, followed by mincha by second period at 2:07, and mincha will take place in our second period classes.